Remember, remember, the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. This is the opening line spoken by protagonist Evie Hammond on the first page of the script for V for Vendetta. It is used as an echo to unify plot points throughout the story, with the quote mentioned 6 times in total. The second time, it is mentioned by the character V right before he blows up the Old Bailey, which is the story's overall inciting incident, because it gets the public and government involved in the protagonist's revolutionary schemes. The third time, it is used by Louis Prothero, who is the propaganda minister and tyrannical Nosefire Party's mouthpiece, the voice of London, just before V murders him out of revenge for his part in the oversight of a virus that killed over 80,000 Londoners nearly a decade before. A third quote is spoken by Finch shortly after Evie's fake but enlightening torture and incarceration. Again by her after V's death, which is the script's reversal, and once more when the Parliament building is blown to bits. Each of these highlights a different plot point for the story. The first few pages are voiced over by Evie, who describes the gunpowder plot of 1605, at which Guy Fawkes tried to blow up Parliament. This becomes the basis of the whole movie, seeing as Guy Fawkes is the inspiration for V, whom therefore inspires Evie, and from there the rest of the people of London. The voiceover directly addresses the story of not only the gunpowder plot, but of V for Vendetta, in saying that, in regards to Guy and the gunpowder plot, sometimes I wonder where we would be if he hadn't failed. I wonder if it would have mattered. I suppose the answer is in the rhyme, more than the man. But we must remember is the plot itself. For in the plot, we find more than just a man. We find the idea of the man, the spirit of that man. And that is what we must never forget. This then is the story of that idea, of that spirit that began with an anarchist's plot 400 years ago. By midpoint on page 2, Evie is describing her origins and the beginnings of this dystopic realities conflict. She says, "My father used to say that people were so afraid that the world was going to end that they were willing it to happen." This addresses the film's theme of docility, or fear, in the public sphere, which later on evolves into the action and accountability, or freedom, of said sphere. Evie says that while there are many things she does not remember, she does recall how fear impacted her even as a child. The sound of hundreds of marching soldiers is introduced here. On page 3 she says, "Very clearly I can remember that sound, and I remember those boots, black leather, that gleamed bright in the morning sun. I had never seen such boots, all moving in perfect unison." While it is known that Margaret Thatcher was one of the inspirations toward V for Vendetta's ultra-conservative government and later fascist British police state, these images also reminisce Hitler's Nazi Germany. This imagery is echoed again when Evie says on page 5, with regards to the arrests, "The homosexuals were next. What God had started with AIDS had to be finished by man. It was God's work." That's what we were told. Later, Valerie is sent to a detention facility for being a lesbian and having medical experiments performed on her, which was reminiscent of the persecutions of homosexuals in Nazi Germany during the Holocaust. Evie's voiceover details the rise of the party leader, Adam Susan, in the film Adam Sutler, and says, "It must have seemed so easy to them. They offered such a simple ideal. Give up control, and we will restore order." On page 4, it is shown with Evie's voiceover that her activist parents are taken away, black bag style, when she is a child. On page 5, everyone except for the generalized, straight white inhabitants are arrested. The motto, "Strength through purity, purity through faith," again harkens back to the Nazi-style Aryan living. To add to this, most of the film was recorded in Germany, sometimes in locations where Hitler himself delivered speeches. On page 6 and 7, the voice of London propagates fear through lists of raids, curfews, and arrests. rations are mentioned, and systems of surveillance are detailed in place, which gives the Big Brother effect. On page 8, there is an awkward prostitution proposition given by Evie to a man who by page 9 is revealed to be a fingerman, an extension of the government security system. Evie is put in danger and about to get raped by 3 more, so 4, fingermen, when V arrives, quoting Macbeth, Act 1, Scene 2, "The multiplying villainies of nature do swarm upon him, and fortune, on his damn quarrel smiling, showed like a rebel's whore." End quote. This quote is important because Macbeth arguably is one of Shakespeare's best plays, and dramatizes the damaging physical and psychological effects of political invasion on those who seek power for their own sake. It is also a tragedy, which is important because with V's first quote can be established his position as a tragic hero. A tragic hero is a literary character who makes a judgment error, which inevitably leads to his own destruction. In V's case, his is revenge, which also pairs as his hamartia. This revengeful hamartia takes the form of violence and can be seen by page 10 when he kills all 4 fingermen and introduces himself as a villain to Evie. Now, if you've seen the movie, you're probably a little confused, and if you haven't read the comic, even more so. This script was written by the Wachowski siblings just before, actually, The Matrix. However, they came back to it afterwards, and they changed a bunch of it, as you might have noticed, into a more action-based thing, away from the original comic. It's almost, well, it's very different from the book. It's based off of by Alan Moore, who, fun fact, actually never saw the movie and didn't want to. It is overall a story debating sort of one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. So it's all a question up to the viewer or reader. It came out post 9/11, so it was current for that time. The theme, fear to freedom, that goes throughout. And it was an overall satisfying piece to read and or watch.